Hello, today I present 6 steps to kindness. Kindness doesn't really need an introduction. We all want to be treated considerately by others. In discussing kindness, we shall go for a walk at Glenridding in the Lake District. See you there. This is Ullswater Lake on the way to Glenridding. I think it's the second largest lake in England. It's about 7.5 miles long. I think about 1 mile wide. Let's carry on to Glenridding. Welcome to Glenridding. This is a relatively small village in the Lake District. It is very easy to drive through it. You could do so in less than 5 minutes, but you'd miss so much. It is at the south end of Ullswater Lake. I shall make my way to just outside the village. We can go for a pleasant walk and talk about kindness. So, 6 steps to kindness. Step 1. Empathise with others. So let's have a thought experiment. Imagine before you're born, you're looking down on Earth from some sort of platonic heaven, and you don't know into what station in life you're going to be born. You don't know whether you're going to be male or female, black or white or other, whether you'll be rich or poor, whether you'll be able-bodied or have some physical or mental challenges. You are behind a veil of ignorance. So, if you had to choose some principle as to how you want life to be, what would that principle be? Now, I'd suggest that many people would say, well, whatever station in life they're born, they would like people to treat them with kindness. Kindness has that universal appeal. Now, this helps us to focus on empathizing with others. Life is a bit of a lottery. You're in a certain set of circumstances. It could have been otherwise. There are many people who might be less fortunate than yourself. And you realise that could have been me. Now, this sense that life could have been otherwise, we could have been born into a set of different circumstances, encourages us to empathise with others, those who are less fortunate than ourselves. And so we should treat them with kindness, because that's how we would like to be treated. Step 2 is to perform random acts of kindness. The term random acts of kindness, it's a clever term, a memorable phrase. Aesop said that no acts of kindness, however small, go to waste. Sometimes, though, I'm not so sure about the randomness. I'd like to make an especial appeal, particularly to our younger viewers, to go out of their way to do acts of kindness for elderly people. Now, loneliness in old age can be a real issue. When I myself go for a walk in the countryside here, and then later go to a cafe, have a cup of tea and a scone or something, if I see an elderly person sitting by themselves, I would go up to that person and say hello, and if they're willing, have a little chat with them. There was once I was speaking to an elderly man, and he freely admitted that he hadn't spoken to anyone else that day other than the service staff at the cafe. So I thought that was rather sad. During the lockdowns and COVID, of course, people were more and more isolated. Not just the elderly, of course, others. And when the lockdown lifted, there was one elderly man, a man again I'm afraid, who dressed himself up very smartly. And he went to a traditional English pub. He was very overdressed, but he just wanted to make that effort. And because of the restrictions about keeping a distance and things following the lockdowns, you couldn't go up to the bar and order directly and hand over cash. You had to use a QR code from your table to order your pint of beer and pay by card. And he didn't have a smartphone, he didn't have a debit card. And so he was very, very frustrated. And some other people, some younger people in the pub, just ordered a pint for him and just gave it to him free of charge. And again, that was the only contact he'd had that day, the only contact probably he'd really had for quite a while. And of course, he was very deeply touched by the kindness of these people. I just thought I'd show you this little stream and a tiny waterfall. Quite peaceful to listen to it. So this is quite a good view of Ullswater Lake behind me in Glenridding. Now here in Cumbria there's a supermarket chain. I won't name it, but local people will know which supermarket chain I'm talking about. And a few years ago they introduced self-checkout counters, quite common in supermarkets these days. And what they found is that a lot of elderly people didn't like to use these checkout counters. Now, they're not popular, not maybe for the reason you might think, you know, elderly people not comfortable with technology or something, far from it. It was simply the lack of human touch. So again, like I talked about the lonely man in the cafe, some people who visited these supermarkets like to chat with the cashier. Sometimes that was their only human contact for the day. So again, may I ask young people, indulge elderly people when they seem to be taking a little bit too long at the checkout counter, talking too much perhaps to the cashier. I mean, as long as it's not excessive, but just have that consideration, because you don't know what's going on in that elderly person's life. That's their only contact for the day. Step 3 is to lend a listening ear. Epictetus said that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen for twice as long as we speak. Sometimes an act of kindness is just simply listening. You know, particularly if somebody has suffered a misfortune and you're looking for the right words, perhaps the right platitude. Sometimes no need, just a listening ear is sufficient. And maybe a piece of dark chocolate ginger, that's what I quite like. Now, if you do wish to lend more than a listening ear and a piece of dark chocolate ginger, I highly recommend humour. I remember I was at a reception once with a group of philosophers, and we had a non-philosopher in our midst. And he felt rather out. So thankfully I was sensitive to this, and I said to him, "Oh, don't worry about us philosophers. We know more and more about less and less until we know everything about nothing." That broke the ice for him. And so he readily joined in the conversations, which of course eventually turned to other things. Sometimes people need a listening ear when they have been adversely affected by negative comments from colleagues or on social media. Actually, there's some wise words of Epictetus which are quite appropriate here. You might like to offer these. Epictetus said,
"If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'"
Step 4, do not expect any external reward. We do acts of kindness for their own sake. They are intrinsically worthwhile. Now, in keeping with what I've said previously about having a certain distance between events and your emotional reactions, don't feel disappointed if people don't acknowledge your acts of kindness. Some people are simply like that. And of course, acts of kindness can also backfire. People can even resent. So just walk away and not let it bother you. It's right to try to do acts of kindness. Remember, we are in the business of flourishing as a human being. We are developing our character. Kindness is a virtue we are trying to cultivate. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius asked us to show kindness to even those people who are rude to us. He said that to refrain from imitation is the best revenge. Now, I'm reminded of those stories, which may be apocryphal, you sometimes come across, where people do show kindness to others who are rude. For instance, you may have the story of somebody at a fast food drive-through who's taking a bit of time to place their order, and a motorist behind them is honking the horn and mouthing unkind words to hurry up. And then the person, having placed the order, goes to the next window to pay, but not only pays for himself, but pays for the rude person's order behind him, and then drives off. So presumably that rude person, when they find out what's been done, they feel embarrassed and maybe a little ashamed at their rudeness. Step 5 is to keep a gratitude journal. So at the end of each day, write down 3 things that you were grateful for that day. Or maybe 3 acts of kindness that you did to others, and reflect on them.
Step 6 is to be kind to yourself.
Now, it's good to perform many acts of kindness, but as always, you can have too much of a good thing. Imagine if you gave away all your money today to feed the hungry. You'd have no money to feed yourself. So there has to be a middle ground, there has to be compromise.
Now, if you want to be kind to me, please subscribe to my channel. And don't hesitate to leave a comment below either. See you in the next video. Bye for now.